Hello everyone. This episode is going to be a little different today. I don't have a specific structure or direction necessarily. I'm sure you've realized there is no intro music today, no announcements to give you, because today's a hard day. Today's a really hard day, you guys. It's a day for emotion. It's a day to be upset, to be angry, to feel jaded, speechless, frustrated, sad, anxious, concerned for the future, etc. So today, given everything happening right now, I wanted to talk about what a lot of you have been messaging me about. I have gotten several DMs of people forwarding me the news of it, and just people in general feeling very jaded and disappointed and not really understanding what was the point of all the efforts with reposting about Breonna Taylor and trying to advocate and bring awareness to the case. And I get it. I get that this can oftentimes feel like you are pouring so much into it and then you feel so empty when things don't go as planned, as many things in life turn out that same way. But right now is not the time to sit and say, what's the point? Now is the time to ask, what's next? Well, first, let's clear up some things that I already see people doing in reaction to the news. You guys don't get to post and share things on your pages for months and then give up because they didn't go the way we all wanted it to. You don't get to take a hiatus from your activism because something you fought for didn't turn out to have the justice that you wanted it to. Which is, by the way, going to happen a lot when it comes to activism regarding the legal system. Because that's what it is, a system. A system that was created to protect white lives and white lives only. So I understand the initial shock of everything is going to hit all of you that are new to this, but it's in your best interest to wrap your mind around the idea that unless we break the system and rebuild it to something that's reflective of the diverse nature of this country, we're going to continue to have these problems. Because Breonna Taylor is not the first Black person to be killed by police officers for no fucking reason. And she certainly, unfortunately, will not be the last. So you don't get to just go back to burying your heads in the sand like an ostrich because this activism stuff that you took up in your spare time during the quarantine is hard work and you can't handle it. You don't get to not vote and tell other people not to vote and that our vote don't matter, and then cite this situation as a reason to justify your horrible, irresponsible choices as a U.S. citizen. Because voting and exercising our ability to vote is part of being a U.S. citizen. And there are a lot of people in this country, for many different reasons, who do not have citizenship, that depend on us to go into the voting booth and represent them, because guess what? They are a part of our community, especially Hispanics. Second, you guys need to continue to spend time learning about the country you live in, because there's so much involved that it would take me years to explain to all of you, and we don't have that kind of time. I have been filtering through as many topics as I can, But the reality is that a lot of this you guys have to look up on your own, just like I did. Like, how did I find out? Because I fucking did the work. I did the work. So I'm a little bit frustrated at the fact that I'm not upset that people reach out to me when these things happen, because you guys know that I care. You guys know that I will provide you conversation and direction, and I appreciate all of you for even thinking of me and wanting to speak to me right away when things like this happen, because you guys know how much research I've done and how I spend at least 4 hours a day just studying all of this stuff, okay? Politics, American issues, Black issues, Hispanic issues, global issues. I mean, there's almost nothing else that I do on a regular basis besides showering that I do like how I study. So that being said, I understand when you guys reach out to me. Sometimes I feel a little bit frustrated because I just want people to have educated themselves to the place where they can develop their own opinions on things, rather than wanting to gauge me first before they decide what their opinions are. Because I don't have time to do that with 50 different people, okay? That's a lot of time from me. And anyone who's ever had a conversation with me knows that I don't do like some short shit and then one and done. Like, I will give you paragraphs and paragraphs. I give everyone thorough responses to whatever they tell me. I don't bullshit people. I don't shortcut conversations. And for that reason, I do not stay in my DM all the time, because that would be just very mentally draining for me to have to keep pouring into people information that's on Google that you can look up yourself. The annoyed factor isn't even just in things you can look up yourself, but it's also the fact that, and I'm trying to work on this and have more grace for this, that people just didn't know. A lot of people just did not know. But I have a really hard time understanding how people didn't know. Because these things have been around us in the news, in the media for a long time. We have known about Black people dying for a long time. For a long time. We didn't need a teacher or a parent or whoever to spoon feed us that information. It has been there this entire time. And you guys are having a really hard time admitting the fact that you just did not give a fuck. You guys didn't give a fuck about Black people. So don't come into my DM expecting me to be like, I don't know, this kind of like spokesperson for Black people and their issues. Listen. Yes, I have been knee deep in all of these things and trying to educate myself on Black issues for a long time. Yes, this is true. Yes, I have the Hispanic lens of all of that. But and I'm so sorry I'm pausing so much through this, but I'm just trying to make sure that I have no script. There is no outline for this episode. I'm just sitting here going off. I am not the spokesperson for Black people. If you want to know about Black people, if you want to get closer to Black people, all you need to do is get your ass on Google, get your ass on Twitter, get your ass in media, and you will find what Black people are talking about. And you can also, I don't know, talk to a Black person. You could also do that. I'm not here as a vessel to translate what Black people are saying. They're speaking, in my opinion, very loud and clear. Like, Black people didn't ask for covers on magazines. They didn't ask for 18,000 news anchors talking about the same shit over and over again. They didn't ask for all of these things. The glitz and the glamour and whatever. These drawings and illustrations. They didn't ask for that. They asked for the cops to be charged, and that didn't happen. From the beginning, Black people have been saying charge the cops. Charge the cops, charge the cops. Because they knew, I know a part of them knew, that nothing was going to come of this. Because nothing ever comes of it. And that is the problem. Okay? That is the problem. Our justice system is not just. Not for everybody. Our justice system was built to protect white people and only white people. So that being said, they were not going to get charged. We already talked about legal precedent, you guys. They weren't going to get charged. And that was part of why I was you guys didn't see me going super hard with the Breonna Taylor reposts and like doing the say her name 80 times a day like a lot of people were doing, because that is not enough. And I've never found, and I say this out of humility, but I have never found that sharing infographics or whatever, not even infographics, that sharing artist illustrations of a murder victim has ever helped that person get justice. I'm just saying. I understand that the intent was to spread awareness, and I think it definitely helped and succeeded in spreading awareness. But I think people mistakenly shared these images of Breonna Taylor and her story, thinking that it would lead to the judge being pressured and the jury being pressured to arrest the cops that killed her. That is not the case. That never probably was going to be the case because, as I said before, Breonna Taylor is not the first or last Black person for this to happen to, unfortunately. And so I knew while you guys were sharing all this stuff that it wasn't really going to do anything. It was going to let everyone know that it's happening. But people have already known that Black people have been dying for a long time. And it's not to take away or make her death seem insignificant in any manner. And it deserved all the awareness spreading that sharing her picture did. But what I really need you guys to do is think higher than just that, okay? And think about the fact that when you fight for something and it doesn't go the way you wanted it to, you don't just give up. You say what's next. And that is true activism. You keep going. Breonna Taylor's story doesn't end here. People, look at Trayvon Martin. He wasn't killed by police officers, but Trayvon Martin is still referenced on a daily basis. There are so many names that have been forgotten, but so many names that are still talked about to this day. That happened a long time ago at this point, years ago. And Breonna Taylor, unfortunately, she's on that list of people. And activism is keeping those stories alive and reminding people that we need to be fighting the justice system for change, for reform, because this is going to continue to happen. And that is what you're fighting for. And this is what I try to tell people on my Instagram post early this morning, is that activism is not something that you just, okay, I'm done for the day. I did my 9 to 5. Let me hang up my coat now and then go home and you know, I'm clocked out. I'm done for the day. That's not how it works. Activism is 24/7. It's all day, every day. It's what's next, the next issues. And it's not about forgetting what you're fighting for today. It's about multitasking, about spreading your activist energy in as many directions as you possibly can and affecting change. And it's not something that you do it a little bit for a little while, or you pick it up during quarantine because like, hey, this is a new hobby. This is content for me. I can't go outside, so this is content for me to post. That is not what this is about. Because if you truly were an activist and you were doing this on an ongoing basis, you would realize that like being an activist can be extremely draining. And this is why you see my episodes become very inconsistent at some certain points, because it's a lot for me. It's a lot to pour into all of you with the information that I know, that I've researched myself, because school didn't teach me this shit. My parents didn't teach me this shit. If I depended on my parents to teach me this shit, I wouldn't know shit. And I'm sure that's the case for most of you. And that being said, It's an ongoing thing, baby. So if you're going to do this, you got to do it. There's no, I'm frustrated. No, let me just give up. Let me go sit in a corner and be upset that nothing goes the way that it should. This is the world, you guys. This is the world that we live in. The world that we live in is innately evil. And it is up to us to when we get brought down and we lose something, you get back up again. That's the process. Activism is not for the faint-hearted. So if you can't handle it, you gotta get out. Because we need people that are gonna be here. We don't need people seeing what Breonna Taylor's grand jury decision is and saying, see, this is why there's no point in voting. This is why this is never going to change, blah, blah, blah. We don't need that energy. We don't need that energy. That's negative energy we don't need. Because that kind of shit only makes it worse in the end. So what you need to do about it, on top of voting, on top of keeping your energy up in the name of activism, is also practicing activism. And how do you do that? Well, let's start with, okay, step 1, you do the research, right? And then you become comfortable in your knowledge base, let's just say. I see a lot of people not checking their family and friends when it comes to these social issues. A lot of you check people on the internet, or you post stuff, but when it comes down to it, when you're amongst family and friends and acquaintances and coworkers that are already having these conversations, you don't be checking them. That lukewarm energy, we also don't need that. Black people don't need that. That's just a slap in the face of them. And they've been all business this entire time. And I just cannot imagine. I cannot imagine. Just think about what it must feel like to see an image on the news, right? Of a girl or a guy, whoever, whatever you are. Imagine watching the news and seeing a picture of a person that looks just like you on the screen. And they get murdered by police and the police don't get charged for it. Or they get murdered by some white people in their neighborhood and the white person doesn't get charged for it. And imagine over the course of years of your entire life, you continue to see these images up on the TV screen of people who look like you that keep getting killed. How terrifying of a life that must be to constantly live in fear, to constantly be unsure of the spaces you sit in. And what was particularly heartbreaking, what has me with goosebumps right now, is the fact that this woman wasn't even out in the world doing anything. She was fucking sleeping. Okay? So what does that tell Black women and Black people in general about their safety? They don't have safety. They've never had safety. Could you imagine, even when you're sleeping and someone walks into your room and like starts talking to you about something and you're like, whoa, you're all like delirious because you're like half asleep, half awake. Could you imagine that happening to you and you're getting bullets into your body? We gotta do better, you guys. We have to do better. Change doesn't come from sharing certain things on your pages, okay? Change starts within. That's the first thing. It has to start with your mind. You have to look within, okay? That's where change begins. When you look within yourself and you hold yourself accountable for what you know, what you don't. When you hold yourself accountable for your knowledge. When you prioritize understanding the world around you and not just seeing things from this egocentric point of view where everything orbits around you and your desires and your hopes and your dreams, your aspirations and the things that you want and your goals and all that. It's not just about you. When you die, it's not just about you as a person. A lot of people are going to forget a lot of people existed. But it's how you affect change while you're here, you guys. It's what you do with your time here. How you put the current of positive energy into the world and keep that going. It's like I said on the Instagram where I was trying to explain that activism is a baton that's passed from generation to generation. It's going to continue on even past us. There's always going to be someone's rights being violated. So we're always going to need activism. But with that comes activist education and just knowing, like, you guys can't go into these things expecting that it's going to come out your way. If that was going to be the case every time, we wouldn't have any issues. This world is constantly trying to violate other human beings, particularly Black people. And the sooner you let that shit like really sink into your brain, the easier and also the harder it's going to get for you. So I made this episode because I just wanted you guys to understand that the most important points: 1, vote. 2, you need to be practicing activism in all areas of your life and actually affecting change socially and having these conversations that are difficult and dialogues that are hard and challenging and uncomfortable with your family and friends, and not treating activism as a quarantine hobby. And lastly, we can't forget Breonna Taylor. And I know that you guys are upset and concerned and anxious, angry, frustrated, all of these things. But we honor her when we practice activism in her name, in the names of all the people that have come before her, in the names of people who will come after her. This is a lifetime worth of work here. And I just want to take this episode to ask you guys that when this pandemic starts to teeter off, because it will eventually, I know it doesn't feel like that way right now, but it will. When this pandemic slows down and work calls you back and you're back to the grind, back to, a hectic life because Americans are overworked, don't forget about what it means to take time to inform yourself on these things. Don't let Breonna Taylor just be a symbol for that time when we're going through a pandemic and these crazy things were happening. Breonna Taylor is one of many. And this pandemic has served to bring attention to her and to other people and to the issue. But my concern is that people are going to go back to their lives and we're going to be back at square one because they've only gotten a taste of activism and are freaking out. And as someone who's been doing this shit for a long time, if it takes only one situation to have you freaking out, you got a long way to go. You got a really long way to go. And my concern is that when things are super hard for people, they give up. People don't like to do things that are hard. And people don't like to do things that don't give them an instant satisfaction or an instant sense of success. People don't like to be a part of something that feels like it's the losing side. So I just want to end this episode with a closing word. prayer. You know, I know not everyone is spiritual in any capacity, but I just feel led to put some words into the universe about Breonna Taylor with the intention to honor her life. I'm going to be praying to Black Jesus, but you guys can pray to whatever you believe in. Or you can just be in agreement with it and not necessarily pray at all if you are not spiritual. So that's fine too. Dear Black Jesus, I just want to take this moment out to pray for Breonna Taylor, wherever she is, beyond this planet, beyond the galaxy and the stars. I pray her spirit is flying free of the heartache and the worries of this world. You know, she was so young, and so much of her life was stolen from her in such a senseless way. And I just pray that you wrap your arms around her family and friends. I can't even imagine what they are going through while hearing all this news. And in the midst of grieving the loss of their daughter and friend, having to hear these things. I pray you would bless those who lives around her and give them clear vision on the next steps that will be taken to preserve and honor her memory. And I pray her community has access to whatever their needs are, whether it be grief counseling or their finances needing to be covered, and people within their community be available for them to turn to when they need to decompress from it all. I pray that the situation just not be in vain, and that it be a stepping stone for a new era in America. I pray that Breonna's story during such a specific time in this 2020, in this pandemic, would lead to a remarkable change in our country. And as you remove the veil from the eyes of so many in America and beyond, I pray that the Black community find a fresh direction on tackling these predatory threats to their livelihood, and that all racial and ethnic groups join in supporting the comeback that will arise from what seems like such a huge setback right now. And lastly, I pray that the karmic nature in this universe, which the Creator has so wonderfully crafted, take a swift hand at the ultimate gavel, the spiritual gavel, to which these cops have not yet answered to. And I pray that the karmic punishment in this physical life be painful, grueling, and almost impossible to bear, much like the suffering in which they have put Breonna's family and friends through. As you've heard before, there is a higher court than courts of justice, and that is the court of conscience, and it supersedes all other courts. Thank you guys for joining me on this impromptu episode. Please register to vote. Please make other people register to vote. Even if you are registered, don't just tell me I'm registered. Okay, what about your mom? What about your dad? What about your grandpa? What about your fucking hairdresser? What about the guy at the grocery store? Please have a plan, and please keep your individual lights shining. Do not give up on fighting for Black issues and for human rights as a whole. Spread light and love and positivity. Be kind to one another. And most importantly, hug your loved ones tightly and tell them how much you love them, because life is so unpredictable and short. We never know what will happen tomorrow. So stay safe, and I will talk to you all soon.